This is a satsang with Guru Rajananda Yogi, USA 1981, number 38, recorded at Techni Towers in Illinois.
Good. During every course, we always have a rapid fire session, which means try and get as many questions in as possible, and of course shorter answers, instead of one answer taking the entire satsang. Would that be a good idea for this morning?
Yeah, we have a question, but if you want to do the rapid fire, that's fine. I haven't had any warning of that, so they.
But these things must just come up. In other words, it's sort of an impromptu exchange. Therefore, we don't give them warnings.
Those of you who haven't been here, what that simply means is we ask questions that aren't terribly. The answer, which will not take the usual time. So it's kind of a more simple, direct question with a quicker answer, so that you can do many of them.
Yeah, and anything, how to bake bread, boil potatoes, anything.
You want to start?
I have a question.
Yes.
I know you mentioned that the child in the womb has some degree of consciousness. Is there a consciousness in the fetus from the start from the beginning of pregnancy?
Yes. Consciousness is something which is totally indestructible and is eternal. So it's not only the fetus that has consciousness, but the entire womb is consciousness itself. For everything existent is nothing else but consciousness. And, of course, the higher the development, the greater the recognition or cognition of that which we call consciousness. But at the age of about 6-7 months, the fetus starts remembering who it is and what it is. So, when a baby is born, we must not think that the baby knows nothing. Yes. In other words, it is becoming aware of itself once it leaves the womb. And as time passes, the awareness grows and grows until it starts recognizing its environment. And the very recognition of the environment is proof enough of the consciousness that the infant contains within himself. And that, of course, would be an individualized consciousness. So when greater and greater recognition grows, the individuality grows, and the child assumes a personality. So from the assumption of the personality, the path of progress would be to depersonalize himself until it becomes the entirety. And that is the working. So everything is consciousness. This table has consciousness. This plant, these flowers, shrubs, that gong, great consciousness there.
Consciousness is not the soul. Experiencing consciousness is not the soul.
When we say soul, one has to differentiate or really qualify the word, what we mean by soul. Now, in many theologies or philosophies, soul is interpreted as the spirit, but really speaking, it is not a spirit. Spirit, the soul, is actually the personalized aspect of the divine spirit that is within man. So there, although everything is just but one, these differentiations for the sake of evolution and for unfoldment and for explanatory purposes, we divide these things up into soul and spirit and mind and body, but it's all one really. Because you could, if a person asks, where is your soul? That question becomes a non-question because you are the soul. You see, so every cell of your body is the soul. And if we study this holography, we will find that even the teeniest bit of the picture would contain the entirety of the picture. So every cell of your body contains within itself the entirety of your soul or consciousness in its personalized aspect.
And why do some suggest to go to the heart to find the soul of your soul or God?
Why do some suggest?
Yes, instead of going to the cell of like your ectoplasm or your fingernail.
I didn't get you. What about your fingernail?
Why do some Eastern philosophers suggest to go to your heart to find the soul of your soul or God instead of saying
some Eastern philosophers, you have answered it. They have they have their own personal definition of things. What they really mean is to find the core of yourself. And they do differentiate, they cause the separation, that there is a soul residing within you. It does not reside in you. You don't own a soul or possess a soul. You are the soul. You say, oh, he was a merry old soul. That kind of thing. So, what soul are we referring to? Now, that soul that we talk about can also be equated to our subtle body or the mental body of ourselves, and there is no difference between the mental body or the subtle body and the grosser body. It just assumes different aspects of the same thing. So, for example, if we can take a plant, now the leaves here are tangible, but yet that which invigorates this plant is the sap, which is intangible, and yet without the sap being there, this plant would not have any tangibility. The senses will not be able to perceive it. And what it actually is solidified sap. That brings about the solidity in that what we see. Water vapor might not be available to one's sight. One might not see water vapor, yet the same water vapor could become water, and the same water could become a solid block of ice. So there is no difference between the vapor and the ice, but just different aspects of it caused by condensation. So the soul is the body is the soul, the mind is the body is the mind. And just for the purpose of definition, we use these various terms. So man does not possess a soul, and you do not need to go into your heart to find the soul. You can go into your toe and find it there too. Lovely, lovely. Next.
Another?
With Christmas time just around the corner, there's so much depression, and they say there are more suicides during this time of year than any other time. How much emphasis should we put on gift-giving, Santa Claus, or what have you?
Santa Claus is a so-called myth as far as the elders are concerned, but it is not mythical as far as a child is concerned. The child believes that there is a Santa Claus, so when a present comes, the child thinks that Santa Claus has brought it. Meanwhile, the parents, while the child is asleep, has put it in the sock. But there is some value in this belief, that at least we are teaching the child in this way that there is something higher than himself, that there is a gift giver. In this symbolic way, we are teaching the child that there is a power of grace that gives. You see? So when children have the belief in Santa Claus, We should not destroy that belief. They outgrade themselves as they gain greater and greater understanding. But the whole gist, the whole meaning behind it is this, that there is a part of grace existent which is a giver and not a taker. So, when they have that thought in their mind, they naturally would emulate that in their later life and become givers. So, that is as far as the child goes. Now it comes to exchange of presents at Christmas time. It started with very, very good meaning, but nowadays it has been so misinterpreted. I gave Auntie Mary a crystal vase and she only sent me a tuppenny halfpenny book. Huh? Do you see? So it has become a business. It has become an exchange, and the real beauty of gift giving has been lost. Because any gift that is given, one should never expect a return. A gift should be more in the form of appreciation of anything, appreciation of friendship, appreciation of the relationship one has with the other. It is also a kind of remembrance, the true essence of it we are talking about, and not the remembrance. We might not remember at all the person concerned, but we try and impress the person by letting the person know that, look, I have remembered you by sending a card or sending a gift or something like that. And then you come home and say, go blimey, I've spent $5. Could have bought something for $2. Now, it loses all purpose. A gift should be a symbolic form of the exchange of love between two people, or whatever the case might be. So, the giver is always the gainer in everything in life. The more you give, the more you receive. That is a natural law which is totally indisputable. A person came to me who was in difficult circumstances in his business. He says, what must I do now? So we worked out a plan how he could increase his business. We went through his balance sheet, and with me having a background of a chartered accountant, I am capable of discussing his business problem with him. So we worked out a plan how he can, if he really does work, how he can come out of his problems. But I say, do this, fine, but do something else also. And that is, just give to anything you feel worthwhile, and you would see how it rebounds back on you. So, we find in this world many takers. They talk a lot, just empty words. They would go to a restaurant and for two people they'll spend $20, $30 for an evening, but they'll pass a poor person on the road and would hesitate putting in 2 cents in the purse. And yet that would have greater value than anything else. For the giver is always the receiver. Now it is human nature. Human nature is very lecherous. They're grabbing, most natures. You'd have, I talk of personal experience. You'd have people coming to you demanding the most of your time, as if they owned you. Demanding most of your time, even this done, that one, that done, but and write you long letters. But they'd never think, let's put $1 bill in Guruji's envelope so at least he can buy himself a little bottle of eye drops. Okay, no, they don't. No, they don't. But then, the person on the receiving end, how should he take it? These thoughts, naturally being human, would arise in a person's mind. And then a person of spiritual qualities, of a certain spiritual height or stature, you would say, why not? Isn't it my dharma to give? And in this way, the giving takes place. And so, although in reality it should be a two-way street, it does not always happen that way. But we ourselves must never forget our dharma. And that is important. So that is also within the framework of gift giving. You see. So, gift does not only take the form of anything tangible or anything of monetary value. The greatest gift you could give a person that's in trouble, or say some comforting words, for example. And I have found through personal experience that just one word spoken very casually has had so much effect that it has transformed in hundreds of cases, and I've got letters and letters to prove it, that just one word casually spoken has transformed a person's life, where a person's life has been so dull and dreary, and it has been transformed into of greater joy, happiness, and gaiety. So these things are important. So gifts are not necessarily of tangible value, but they could be given in so many different ways. Someone comes to you in trouble, and just even a few words of comfort helps. That's also a gift. A gift means giving. Giving in whichever way and in whichever form. For to repeat again, the giver is always the gainer, always. So we all, if we develop the giving spirit, so much happens to us. Our own personalities gets transformed, because when you give, you become charitable. Fine. That is a great virtue. When you become charitable, you become kind, another great virtue. When you become kind, you become compassionate. When you have compassion in you, you develop greater and greater sympathy. When you develop that sympathy, you would feel the problems of the person and share it, and that very sharing of someone else's problems can lighten your own problems too, as well as lightening the problems of the person concerned. So with the small idea of giving, all these great virtues get developed in us spontaneously, without awareness. And is that not life really? Is that not life really? I do remember this story by Victor Hugo, Les Miserables, and there is one passage there which I read when I was a small boy, but I have remembered it all the time. It sticks in my mind all the time. This one man stole a loaf of bread, and he was hounded by the police. I'm sure you know this story. And here he took refuge in a church, and he was so broke that when he was leaving the church, he stole a pair of candlesticks, silver candlesticks, and as he was going out, the priest was there, and the priest said, "My son, life is made to give and not to take." It's very beautiful. So all this falls under the department of gifts and giving. It must not be done with a motive that if I give Auntie Mary this, what is she going to give me? Then that becomes business, and then it ceases to be a gift. You see. And of course, the greatest gift one could ever give anyone is the sincerity and the purity of the love that is always within us. And when we say pure love, we mean cloudless love in its pristine purity. And that is great giving. So this businessman, he started giving. Although his business was in trouble, he started giving to this charity, that charity. And the law of nature works that way. You can really not define it. But somehow or the other, his business started increasing and his problems started disappearing. And he is a very prosperous man today, without the worries that he had in his particular sphere of business. Try one thing. Take a few cents in your hand every morning and just throw it away. Don't see where it falls. Just throw it away. For someone to pick it up. Sounds so simple. Sounds like nothing, does it? Right? But in 6 months' time, you will tell me the results of it. What would happen within you? Okay, a little experiment. Over a period of 6 months, a couple of cents. It's not going to cost you too much. Okay, fine. Next.
Guruji, I noticed that you're always interested in circles. In circles.
Circles,
Explain the
yes.
significance of it. For instance, you say, don't break the circuit when you meditate this way. Now, there's some schools that meditate with their hands out like this, as if they, they're going to catch God as he comes down. And they sit this way by the hour. It's very uncomfortable. In fact, one group, they had watches come around. Anytime your hands move, they park your hands back. Surrender, like that. And would you explain about the circuit idea and what you're circuiting, whether it's right, left brain, or what?
When you do meditation, you are gathering together all your energies. In meditation, you gather together all your energies. Now the adept who has an abundance of it, who virtually becomes a channel for the energies, he can meditate in this way, where he is, after gathering those energies very consciously and spontaneously, he is sending it out to the world. So that serves the purpose. But for the novice, still not well established within himself, still not well integrated, he should always hold his hands together. Now, holding hands together is also a form of prayer, a surrender. Yes, when we pray, we always do that. Right? So it is a form of surrender. Fine. And the other important thing there is this, that with the recharge of energy, we are not solvent enough yet to give off those energies. So we preserve those energies within ourselves to strengthen ourselves. Now, I know there are many schools that believe have hands this way, and yet they don't know the meaning of this. It is symbolic. These 3 fingers represent the 3 gunas that constitute the universe, tamas, rajas, and sattva. Fine. These are combined with it represents all the relativity of life. So this represents the absolute factor, or Shiva and Shakti, the manifest and manifestation. And after transcending and having control over these senses, over these gunas, one combines the relative with the absolute. That is the significance of that. You see, many people would sit. See, but we have found this through experiments at the universities in South Africa. We have used electrodes to measure energy levels, and we have found that by holding the hands together, it is not only reverence to a power that be, but we have found that the energy level in a person rises more measured on these electronic devices than if he had his hands apart. So even if you don't sit in a semi-lotus like this, and you sit down on a chair, it's nice to have your feet together or your feet touching instead of being apart and your hands touching. You form a sort of wholeness with you. And as the energy flows through you, why let it escape out? Let it re-enter you again and regenerate itself and regenerate all the time, creating greater and greater momentum and preservation of the energy. Many times I have people sitting around with me meditating, and as you said, they come and separate your hands. I go and put the hands together. That's the whole idea behind.
Good morning, everybody that joins us for the message for the day, December 22, Light in the Supraconscious Mind. We are architects of our impressions. We are also architects of the process that discards them. Now, we have been the architects of what we are, or the real self which is within us, have been pushing through an evolutionary process till it has arrived to exactly this day, this position, this body, these patternings, these circumstances. We have been the architects of that. We are also the architects of discarding that. The supraconscious mind is at the finest level of relativity and represents the quality of light. Our conditioning depends entirely on how much light from the supraconscious mind filters through. The clearer the passage is for that light, the more genuine the experience is, because in the power of the light, the conditioning disappears, is overcome, and the purity of the experience is felt. Therefore, to acquire true experience, one has to clarify the mind. The mind, which is not just the conscious mind, but it's the subconscious mind, with all its layers, with all the patternings, with all the behaviors learned through an evolutionary process. It can be either clouded and clumsy and full of conflicts and contradictions, or you can see. And if you can see, means that the light from the supraconscious mind is filtering through. The supraconscious mind is the center, is the heart, is the same thing as we could call the heart or the center of your own individuality, is that which is nearest to the universal mind. If the mind becomes clearer, the experience becomes more valid and true. And that is what we want, the true experience of ourselves. How do we discard these memories or impressions? They are not something we can pull out through our ears and throw away. No. You have a third force, the force that is always with you. That force, which comes from your inner self, can be utilized. It can be consciously activated so that the blockages of impressions in the mind are pushed out. And that force, we activate it by the tools, the practices, as Guruji would say, through meditation techniques and spiritual practices. It's a matter of determination. It's only one day that you have to live. Be in the presence. Every minute of that day, one day after the other, and you'll see that your mind gets inundated by the light of the supraconscious mind. So thank you very much. Happy and very Merry Christmas to everybody. Christmas Eve is just soon to arrive, and of course, don't forget to subscribe and to follow us every day with the message for the day. Thank you very much. Namaste.